All right, welcome everyone to this Catch Science seminar. My name is Jacob Pernell. I'm a postdoc at EPFL. Today, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Congbo Song, who's currently a senior research scientist at the National Center for Atmospheric Science at the University of Manchester. He was previously a research fellow at the University of Birmingham, and he obtained his PhD from Nankai University. His research focuses mainly on the impacts of source-specific air pollution and human health and climate change, and he accomplishes this through field campaigns, advanced receptor and statistical modeling, as well as machine learning. And then today, he's going to give us a talk about some of his work on aerosols in the high Arctic using machine learning. So, Congbo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Today I'm going to talk about sources and the drivers of site-resolved aerosol in Svalbard. This work was done during my postdoc project. The project funded by the LERC. That's shipping mission in the Arctic and the North Atlantic atmosphere. And thanks for all the co-authors contributing to this project. And I see many people are here attending the meeting. Thank you all. So why should we care about the Arctic aerosol? Many of you already know that the main reason we care about the Arctic climate is that Arctic is warming 2 times or even more than 3 times as fast as the global average. As you can see from the left panel, you can see the Arctic amplification is much higher than the global average. And in Svalbard, you can see the temperature changes from 1898 until now. You can see a dramatic increase in temperature recently. In terms of the climate change, we can see aerosol plays a role in the climate change, where the aerosol cloud and the radiation interact reactions. From last year's IPCC report, we can see a large uncertainty in black carbon's effects on the climate and temperature. And you can see we don't know much about whether it is cooling or warming. And to sum them up, their effects, their impacts on the climate, we are not sure. And the latest report this year, we can see they separated the black carbon into the fossil fuel section, fossil fuel fraction. You can see they concluded that the black carbon from fossil fuel has a warming effect. And from the biomass burning, we are not sure about their climate effects, whether it is cooling or warming. And for the total aerosol, their effects on the climate, they have a very large uncertainty. That's why we care about the aerosol climate and in the Arctic region. So in the Arctic, in the high altitude areas, we care about the aerosol sources and the processes. In terms of sources, they can either be from natural sources and anthropogenic sources. Most of the anthropogenic sources are long-range transported air pollution or maybe local produced pollution. So they can either be local primary emission or secondary formation, or from transported air pollution. So this figure is established from they can They give us many potential sources of aerosol in the active region. For example, C3 aerosol, secondary aerosol, and biogenic aerosol, and blowing slow aerosol, and the long-range transported particles. And they have effects cloud formation and their effects on the radiation balance. Our measurements was conducted in Gravel Belt Observatory at Svalbard, which is Italian observatory. And in the Svalbard, Svalbard region. Initially, we care about the coarse particles because we want to see C3 aerosols and blowing slow aerosols. We studied the long-term measurements of coarse particles using APS measurements and black carbon measurements and offline filter samples, chemical composition from offline filter samples. We analyzed inorganic ions and organic compounds, many MSC and oxalate. And the first we look at the coarse particles. We conduct the K-means clustering particle size distributions. When we look at the coarse particles, we need to look at the volume size distributions because it doesn't make sense to look at number size distributions for the large particles. So we converted the number size distribution to volume size distribution and conduct the K-means clustering. We anticipate to obtain different clusters from the particle size distribution, mainly related to different sources. So the left panel shows we have 5 clusters from the K-means clustering. And we did see some small particles concentrated in cluster 1 and large diameter particles in cluster 5 and some middle diameter particles for cluster 3 and cluster 4. And the cluster 2 is transition pattern between cluster 1 and cluster 3. So it has some statistical meaning, but we want to link different clusters to different sources. So we look at the ratio between the sodium and the calcium. So that's the linear axis, that's a log scale. So if we look at the scatter points, we can see the cluster 2, cluster 3, and cluster 4 is very close to the sea-water ratio, which means they are potentially related to the sea-water, C3 aerosol. And for the cluster 1 and cluster 5, they are near regression close to the mineral dust ratio, which means they might be related to mineral dust. And from this figure, we can also conclude that different clusters often mixing sources are often found in each clusters because their ratio are not exactly equal to mineral dust ratio or sea-water ratio. So there must be mixing sources in each cluster. And particularly for the cluster 1, remember cluster 1 is may have some dominant peaks in the 5 model. They have some, the ratio suggests that they might be linked to the mineral dust. We suggest that cluster 1 is cluster 1 is might from remote dust, transported dust, because cluster 1 is identified as polygenic, mainly in the winter season, Arctic haze, and the cluster 5 may be the local dust because they have large particles. So from the K-means clustering, we identified the different clusters, different particle clusters, but we can only conclude that they are dominated by certain sources, but they are not pure sources. They are mixing sources in different clusters. So that's why this figure drove us to conduct a factor analysis, advanced receptor modeling, to separate mixing sources in each cluster. That's the M1. M2 is to do the source approximations on particle numbers, because traditionally we only know about the source contributions to particle mass concentration in the Arctic region. We don't know much about the source contributions to particle numbers. That's why we can move the method from the K-means clustering to receptor modeling, particularly using the PMF modeling. We included more data in our raw data set. We included the particle, because we want to do particle number source approximation. So we included the ultrafine particle number concentration, number size distribution data from SMPS measurements, and from the receptor modeling review, we need to include the trace metals because they are very good tracers for different sources. So for this part, we have the data from particle size distributions from SMPS and APS, and we have chemical composition data from offline filter samples, mainly in organic ants and selected organics. And also we have the trace metal data from filter data. And we use the PMF could conduct the receptor modeling. So that's the performance. That's the first question is how to select the factor numbers for the receptor modeling. So this figure gave us the idea how many factor numbers are suitable for the receptor modeling. We can see the loudest ratio Q2 per Q expected is found the factor number of 9. But if we want to look at the physical meanings, we need to check factor numbers around factor number of 9. For example, factor numbers of 8, factor numbers of 10. So we inspected different results using different factor number solutions, and we conclude that the optimal factor number is about 9. And the first, we look at the total aerosol concentrations to see whether the receptor modeling can reproduce the total aerosol. It turns out the results are very good. So the top one is the volume, total particle volume concentration. The bottom one is the total particle number concentration. You can see in the model using the 9-factor solution, the model can reproduce the total particle concentrations regardless of volume concentration or number concentration. And we then check the each size beam from SMPS and APS. We can see the model can still reproduce every ZB very good, because the ratio, the scaled residuals are within the value of minus plus minus 1. That means very good. So we trust this model. We trust this reciprocal modeling to give us the results. And we using the factor analysis of 9-factor solution, they give us the profiles for the 9 factors. So the left one are the chemical profile, and the right one are the particle size distribution profile. Because we have both data, we can give you all information in terms of the chemical and the size distribution data. From combine the information from chemical profile and the particle size distribution profile, we can identify each factor, identify the sources of each factor. And for example, factor 1, we look at the particle number concentration, particle size distribution profile. They are dominated by. They explain the variation for the small particles, ultrafine particles, are mainly dominated by the factor 1. And that means we identified it as nucleation factor. And the second factor is dominated by the MSC, which is treated for biogenic aerosol. So we identified factor 2 as the biogenic aerosol. And the others are the same. For the details, you can look at my paper, published paper. So in general, we identified the 5 factors, the 9 factors, and we related them to different sources. But we have some minor factors, we don't know their potential sources. For example, the factor 4, we don't know their sources. Maybe they are just errors, measurement errors, or some error factors. And for the mineral dust, we have the 2 factors, which may be true, because from the clustering method, we also identify the two mineral dusts. And this figure gave us the size withdrawal, aerosol sources. You can see different particle diameters are dominated by different sources. For the small particles are mainly dominated by the nucleation factor, and biogenic also can present in coarse particles, and the secondary also mainly in Atkin model. And we also saw some secondary also in large particles. Maybe we are not sure. Maybe some coating effects. And the advantage of the receptor modeling on size withdrawal aerosol is that they can give us the source contribution to particle number and also mass or volume concentration at the different size bins. So the left figure gave us the different source contributions to volume, and the top one is volume concentration, and the bottom is the number concentration in each month. In each month, you can see the seasonal variation, source contributions at the different size bins. So if we look at the small particles from 10 nanometer to 25 nanometer, they are mainly dominated by the nucleation factor. And the small Atkin model, we can see dominated by secondary and apart from the nucleation, maybe from nucleation model goes to large particles. And for the large particles, the coarse model particles, the volume concentration or the mass concentration are mainly dominated by blowing slow or seesaw. And remember, we separated the blowing slow and the seesaw using chemical trace of bromide. Yes, using the bromide. And we can calculate the total aerosol particles with diameters between 40 nanometer to 20 micrometer. So we can see the potential, the different the source contributions to potential cloud constellation Ukraine. We can see, we look at the number concentration, we can see in winter seasons, early spring seasons, contributions are mainly from anthropogenic aerosol and secondary aerosol. And in summer seasons, they are mainly contributed from secondary and also from nucleation. So from the whole year point of view, the main sources of potential CCN are from secondary and nucleation, because anthropogenic are only present in spring. So I don't know. So when we have different aerosol sources, we want to know the impacts of the drivers of each aerosol factor. So we use the explainable machine learning modeling to see the responses of the different aerosol factor to different environmental drivers. We included the explainable variables, mainly the environmental parameters such as temperature, boundary layer height, and relative humidity, surface pressure, cloud cover, slow fall. Because remember we have the blowing slow, so slow fall may be a tracer, maybe important environmental driver for the blowing slow, and the solar radiation and the temperature, precipitation, wind speed, wind direction, air mass clusters, and the relative fraction of the accumulated time for surface types. But we only consider the air masses with height below the mixing layer. For the independent variables, we have the 9 aerosol factor. We use the particle number constraints. So the schematic is the first is to build the random forest model using the explainable variable and the independent variable. And then if we train the model, if we could get some good results, good model performance, we can use the shape approach to interpret the model, the random forest model. The shape method is explainable, is an explainable machine learning technique. It can fairly distribute the anomaly of the total constraints among different environmental parameters. So that is the basic information about the SHAP technique. The SHAP the following is the SHAP additive explanation. The basic assumption of this model is that the SHAP value from different environmental parameters can be additive, which is not fully true, but we don't have a perfect solution to this problem. So we still use this method for now. So the SHAP method consider the interaction effects between variables. So basically, it gives us a SHAP value. If the SHAP value above 0, that means it has a positive impact. Positive impacts. It has a plus impacts. If the SHAP value is less than 0, it has minus the negative impacts. So it's minus impacts. And I think the biggest advantage of this method is that this method, the SHAP method, can give us the local effects of the different environmental drivers on the aerosol. So basically, each data set it has a SHAP value, so it has some responses. The SHAP value is the response of the particle aerosol to the different environmental parameters. For example, the first column is the nucleation. We can see this one is the trajectory fraction over the CIs. You can see the sudden increase when there is some as air masses travel over the CIs. It means CIs has some impacts on the nucleation. And also for the solar radiation, we can see the linear effects, and the temperature similar, and the relative response to the wind speed. It means this factor are mainly from local formation. Yeah. And the second one is the biogenic. You can see the CIS has impacts on the biogenic, particularly with more CIS, particularly the impact with more CIS, there are more biogenics. And the solar radiation and the temperature. Solar radiation is very similar to the nucleation pattern, but the temperature, the nucleation and biogenic, their responses to temperature are totally different. For the temperature, it has an inflection point here. So that means there are some nonlinear responses of sources to environmental drivers. That's why we use the machine learning method. That's the advantage of the machine learning method over traditional linear regression method, I think. And the second way, solar radiation, temperature, and mineral dust, wind speed, wind lift the mineral dust. The temperature, it has nonlinear responses. We can see if the temperature is higher, there are more mineral dust, but if the temperature is lower, there are still more mineral dust. I think this part may be related to long-range transported dust, because the low temperature, mainly in the winter season, there are Arctic haze, and the air mass are more industrial to the Arctic region. So maybe there are more remote dust transported to the Arctic region. Maybe we are not quite sure. And for the anthropogenic, the same to the mineral dust here and the inflection point here, because they are mainly occurred in winter seasons, early spring season, and positive responses from the wind speed, which corresponded to long-range transported pollution maybe. And sea salt and dust, they all have some positive responses to the wind speed. So if we look at the particle number concentrations with diameter larger than 40 nanometer, we can see that potential that can be regarded as particles acting as CCN. So we can see CS and solar radiation have positive impacts on the CCN. But for temperature, we are not sure because they have some nonlinear effects on those particles. So if we look at summing up all the shape values from different environmental drivers, we can see the seasonal variation of the and the drivers controlling the seasonal variations of each aerosol factor, and we can see the total shape value is the green one is coincident. I think it can reproduce anomaly of the observation. The green one is the anomaly of the observation, and the green one is the shape value. I think the model can fairly reproduce the seasonal variation, and we can see the dominator factors controlling the seasonality of the different aerosol factor. For example, the nucleation factor, we can see the solar radiation has a large impact. Solar radiation has large impacts on their seasonal variation. And others, for example, the trajectory fraction over snow blowing slow, yes, and the sea salt and the blowing slow, they have linked to the trajectory fraction over sea ice and the snow. So the summary. So our study using the reciprocal modeling on both number and volume concentration. Our model, this method can give us the source contributions to both number and mass or volume concentration, which added new values in our understanding of the sources of aerosol sources in the active region, in polar region. And the second one is that we found that explainable machine learning technique is able to reproduce the seasonality of the different aerosol types, and it can give us some atmospheric processes controlling the different aerosol sources. And the third one is that we found the secondary and the nucleation also are the largest contributor to potential CCM particles. And we found that many responses of aerosols to environmental drivers are nonlinear relationships. So probably we need to use more advanced method, such as machine learning method, to better understand the drivers of the aerosols in the rapidly changing climate, rapidly changing Arctic. And but the disadvantage of our method is disadvantage of our study is that we combined we use the offline filter samples. So they are mass concentration, and we combine those data with the volume size distribution data from particle size distribution measurements. So if we have higher time resolution data from mass spectrometer data, give us particle number concentrations of different elements, chemical elements. For example, data from single particle mass spectrometer, which might give us more accurate results on source apportionment. And from the explainable machine learning technique, I think there are right now, this is a rapid developing area. I think there are maybe more accurate, more advanced method to use right now. So our results are maybe published in two papers. If you are interested in our study, refer to our paper. And that's our research crews. We conducted many aerosol measurements. We hopefully to use our method using our data collected during our cruise, but we will use some single particle data to advance our previous method, give us more accurate, more informative results. Hopefully, this is still an ongoing project. Thank you for your listening. Do you have questions? I think I will wrap it here.
All right, thank you very much, Congbo. That was a very nice presentation. I see we already have one question in the chat from Anu. His question is, surprising to see the different drivers for trace metals and anthropogenic markers. Any idea why this would be?
Trace metals, we didn't identify a factor with trace metals. That's an unidentified trace metal factor. And we don't know the sources of this factor. Do you mean this one? And then unidentified trace metals. I think trace metals, the factor with unidentified trace metals, that's because their source is very complex. They may be from shipping machine, they may be from the ocean, they may be from transported ocean. We are not sure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. It kind of does. I mean, as you rightly said, you would expect anthropogenic and trace metals to go together, right? Even if it's a ship, etc., they should have similar markers. But yeah, maybe it's ocean evasion or something. I don't know. It's pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's very complex. Yeah, we don't know.
Thanks.
Okay, we have another question in the slide. Congbo, could you share the slides? Would that be possible?
Yeah, we can share the slides. Okay. Because they are already published. It's okay, totally okay.
Yeah. You can send it to myself or Ellen, and then we can circulate it to everyone else.
Okay. Let's see, there's another question in the chat box.
Yeah, we have a question from Lynn Russell. Lynn, do you just want to say your question, or?
Sure. Great talk, Congbo. Thanks so much, and super interesting articles. I was really interested to see that the dust PMF factors had correlations at what looked like about 100 nanometer diameter, in addition to the supermicron particles. Do you have any idea why that might be? Are there like correlated sources in the small particle regime associated with the dust or local pollution?
The small particles from dust. Small particles. I think the mineral dust cover many diameter ranges, not only in the coarse particles. I think they may be remotely dust transported from low altitude, or maybe they are locally lifted by wind. I think they are dust for sure, but are they from local or remote? We are not. I think it's very difficult to identify them.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
I think because the local mineral dust from local is a very important issue right now in the Arctic.
Okay, we have another question from Emmanuel, and he's asking, would you recommend to people who traditionally use SOFI Igor tool for this kind of hybrid source apportionment for online measurements to also run a clustering machine learning method that you've presented here today? And then if you have any plans about maybe publishing a step-by-step tutorial on your methods, and thank you for your presentation.
And I think the SOFI, we can do similar analysis using the SOFI software. I think we can. And the tutorial, if needed, I can upload the tutorial on my GitHub. Please get in touch with me. Drop me an email, so I will upload those materials on my GitHub. Thank you.
Okay, I actually have a question too. It was very interesting to see that the nucleation factor showed a positive relationship with sea ice.
Yes.
But not so much with time spent over the sea or open water. Can you comment at all on this? I'm thinking about some differences in maybe precursor emissions, but I was curious if you had any ideas.
I saw some papers, some published papers also discussed most nucleation events happen when air mass is traveling over the sea ice region in the Arctic. And the reason we are not very sure. Do you have some possible reasons to explain?
It might be that these air masses have traveled and picked up emissions from open water, but then travel over sea ice, and it's occurred to time scales longer than your trajectory. I also think about possible differences in precursor emissions, whether the nucleating species.
If it is sea ice, what are the precursor emissions?
Well, from open water, you have DMS and oxidized.
Yeah, but for the sea ice, do we have?
Sea ice would be iodic acid. Abiotic emissions from the snowpack or sea ice itself. And then this could be a nucleating species for new particles. That's just one of my hypotheses.
Good. So if you want to use the machine learning, I think there are some automated machine learning, so you can avoid doing the hyperparameter tuning. You can just use the automated machine learning, so you don't need to tune the hyperparameters. Right now, automated machine learning is a very hot topic right now. I think it's a rapid developing area, machine learning, data science.
No, yes, absolutely. The wealth of data sets that we have from the arts especially benefit from some machine. Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh. Carrie, do you want to ask this question or should I just read it?
Yeah, blowing snow. Wait for a second. Blowing snow. So for the blowing snow factor, we have several evidence to support our conclusion.
I was wondering about the slide, which was it? It was the same slide that that had the question about biogenic and the sea ice
Which slide?
correlation. It was a couple of slides later, later in the presentation.
Correlation.
Yeah, that one there. Because I had wondered about the biogenic increase over sea ice as well, but then it looked like blowing snow was decreasing over sea ice. Am I understanding this figure correctly?
Yeah, let's say as blowing snow. Yeah, it's a decrease with the sea ice fraction.
But then
the model tells us.
And then it increases. So I was trying to understand these the axes. So it decreases over sea ice, increases over sea, decreases with solar radiation, increases with temperature, and then increases with decreasing wind speed. Is that, am I interpreting this correctly?
I think it doesn't have statistic meaning.
Oh, okay, that's a lack of correlation.
Yeah.
So when does this, I guess, how do you interpret when the model tells you things like this?
And we can check them. There is another figure, trajectory over the snow sea ice. No snow. But the chemical composition shows us it is blowing snow. And we can see here. Now, if there are more snow, the sharp value is positive.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and the assumption, if I understood correctly, was that bromide was from blowing snow?
From the chemical profile, we can see the bromide is, which factor is blowing snow? on this one. Bromide is factor. Yeah, the bromide, the blowing snow factor is correlated to the high loadings of bromide.
So the F is blowing snow, or F is what does, so is letter F, is that blowing snow? That whole factor?
Let me check.
Because I had ammonium and sulfate as well.
Now it's F9.
Yeah, Carrie, I think the Fs were for the different factors and they were numbered.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, well, thank you for explaining this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the last one. The last one. I checked.
Oh, okay. So that makes a little more sense that the
Mhm.
assumption here is mostly sodium chloride. Okay. Thank you for explaining that again. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your question. Because I think although the model can give us some explanations, I think there are still some errors because the model has some assumptions because they think the different contributions from different drivers they can be additive. Sometimes they are not. So it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Any model is not perfect. It does its best job with the information it has, of course. I mean, could it be a case with when we look at these, with the increasing over the ocean and with temperature and things like that, could it be that there's some sea salt that is some sea spray that is in this factor, and that could be what's driving these environmental correlations?
Yeah, because there are some interactions between different drivers, so sometimes the results is not very good, and the model we can do our own judgment, but we cannot fully trust the model.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think your future work comparing to the single particle data will be really useful.
Yeah, because the offline filter samples they're not perfect because we compare to their set. The offline filter samples are not very good. If we have online data set, compare with an online data set, they're better.
Okay, we have one more question in the chat from Esther. He thanks you for your talk and asks, did you happen to look at the fraction of time trajectory spent above the boundary layer height in your model? And they were wondering if the free troposphere nucleation could affect the particle numbers, especially for the secondary aerosol.
I think we didn't look at the air masses above the mixing air. I think it's not true because above the boundary layer height, there are maybe some nucleation events, but we didn't look at that.
Okay, no, I think you're definitely correct here. Yeah, there's some NPF events occurring higher up when they're transported into the boundary layer. Okay, so is there any more questions from the audience? We are almost out of time. And just feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you like to.
If you have questions, if you are interested in our study, you can just drop me or Congbo an email. We can respond to your email later. Because this work was done during my postdoc. I'm not working on those stuff anymore.
Well, okay. I think this will conclude this seminar. I would like to thank Congbo again for a very nice presentation, very nice discussion. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. If you have any other questions, just shoot Congbo an email. And I'd just like to say thank you very much, everyone, for a very nice meeting today.
Yeah, thank you. If you are interested in those methods or you want me to give some tutorial, I'm happy to do that. Just drop me an email. Thank you. Thank you for your interest.
All right. Thank you very much, Congbo. Hopefully we'll meet in person one day.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.